Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of the Ship Pod. Today I'm joined by Jamie Borsato.
Hello.
We are in the basement of a ship shop in Rotterdam because we did record this about a week ago, but I was in the UK and my voice got corrupted. So this is the second try. So today we're going to talk about the Britannic, the White Star Line's Britannic, and I'm now going to hand over to Jamie. Also, Jamie, please introduce your Instagram account as well.
Well, hello everybody. Like I said, my name is Jamie. I'm an Italian boy, and my Instagram accounts are all shipping lines and Italian shipping lines, and of course Italian shipping lines are Italian liners. So yeah.
Nice clarification. Okay. Right.
So of course we all know the Britannic. She was built like her sisters, Titanic and Olympic, and of course she was also designed to compete against the Cunard line, the Aquitania, the Lusitania, the whole big bunch of three sisters. One major thing that was changed, of course, was her restaurant. That was
change from what?
It was bigger.
Than what?
The Titanic restaurant.
Okay. Is this the a la carte restaurant?
No, the first class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Her swimming pool was majorly changed because, of course, Titanic had she was one of the first ships with swimming pools. They didn't know what they were doing at the time. With Britannic, they had more clearer idea. So it was more luxurious. You had big pillars, wooden hand railings. So yeah, it was a good idea.
I think with the Titanic, they weren't sure if swimming pools were going to take off really.
True.
With ocean liners, and I think so they kept it quite bare. And then when the Olympic came around, the Britannic came around, they were like, yeah, it's worth investing the extra money and time and space into making it nice, I think.
Yes. One thing also of the interior, what was majorly changed was, of course, Titanic and Olympic, they had the grand class staircase with the honor and glory time. Britannic had it also, although they added something else. She had a big organ at the end of the stairwell.
So if you have watched the film, you will know there's a walkway kind of above the top of the staircase, where if you're standing at the top of the stairs, you can see other people standing above the dining room, and that in the Britannic wouldn't have been possible because this big organ would have been there.
True.
Yeah.
Those are actually the big changes from the inside. Of course, when she was being built, the Titanic was on her maiden voyage, and when she got sunk, the White Star Line thought, hey, we have a problem.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. What are we going to do with Britannic now? What they did, they actually added a double hull around her. So if a kind of iceberg collision came, the water would come into the ship, but people wouldn't get wet.
Yes. So from what he described to me last time we spoke about this, it would be the walls of the Britannic would have filled up to a certain point with water, but the actual compartments where people would be and where cargo would be would stay completely dry, provided that that also wasn't burst, which we'll come on to later. It wasn't a foolproof solution, but if there was a collision with an iceberg, for example, or they ran aground, it would have been a lot more safer than the Titanic or the Olympic was.
True.
Yeah.
Of course, what also changed was her davit system. Of course, when the board of regulation after Titanic, they said, hey, we need more lifeboats for all the people on board. There is actually a theory. I'm not an historian of this, so don't quote me. But what I read of a theory, at least, is that when the Britannic was fitting out, the lifeboats that would be on her were stored temporarily on Olympic, which I don't know is true, but like I said, I'm not an historian. the davits, of course, what can clearly be seen is the davits, of course, they were changed. It was like a mechanism that the rope would attach on the boat, on the ends. Somebody would operate the davit and lower it with the buttons, of course. And he would also be one, of course, to be last leaving the ship.
Mm.
So, actually, yeah, that's the big changes.
Yeah. So I think what you mean by this is that someone didn't have to be on the ship to set the last lifeboat away. Is it?
No, actually, what he needed to do, because of course you have the buttons.
Okay.
So at the end, he only kind of had to use the button, and then he could get in.
Yeah. Okay. So with the old davits from the Olympics still had, I think, as well, for most of her career, someone would have to literally be 2 or 3 men would have to stay on the ship to allow the boat to get into the water, and then they're kind of stuck there. But Britannic solved that problem for most of her davits anyway, I think.
True.
Yeah.
Well, of course, when she was completed, the original idea was that she would have the same colors as her sisters. So the white superstructure, the black hull, the big massive orange and black funnels. Actually, just a complete version of the Titanic. Also, one thing that I forgot to say that I will quickly pop in is originally her name would have been Gigantic.
Supposedly.
Yeah. The owners thought it was a bad idea because Titanic sunk, and actually the Britannic was like completely Titanic, only bigger and wider. So for the survivors to see actually like a replica of the grave of their ancestor or family who died, with the name also involved, it was a bad idea.
Mm. Yeah, so I think the theory comes from like Titanic in English itself means, like Titanic with a small t means like a big thing, and gigantic also, yeah. Like they're all going to be synonyms of each other, and I think that's where it comes from. But then obviously, yeah, if this is true, it would have been in poor taste after they kind of I'm not religious, but they tempted God and kind of got smited down with the Titanic. And
True.
Yeah, then so a good name change, I think, and also patriotism at the time. This is just before World War One, so yeah.
Well, like I said, the plan, of course, was for her to come in passenger service, but sadly, of course, as we all know, the First World War broke out, and the Admiralty were commissioning big liners. So Olympic was becoming a troop ship. The RMS Mauritania was becoming a troop ship / hospital ship, and the Britannic was also given the duty of becoming a hospital ship. So she was actually completely painted white with a big green line on her side with big red funnels, and she had also green lights under a promenade. Yeah,
so the reason why most hospital ships look the same, no matter if they're from the UK or the US or Germany or Japan, is because look, it's an internationally recognized livery or paint scheme for hospital ships, because you cannot just sink a hospital ship because it's against, I want to say the Geneva Convention, but I think this is before the Geneva Convention. It might be the Hague Convention of 1907 or something, I think.
Sure.
So that's why. And we're actually not far from the Hague right now, so that's, yeah, trivia.
She would have been commandeered during that time by her captain, and that is Captain Charles Alfred Barrett.
Yes.
He was actually the same rank as Captain Smith. He actually trained some of the crewmen who were going to be on Titanic from the Olympic itself. So he knew how to handle the ships. So he wasn't like a newbie given a big ship. What I can read of books is that he was actually quite a respected captain. He wasn't like Captain Smith, quite social. He was like more to himself. But if the time came that he needed to make, like, say, an introduction or something, he could do that. He was extra cautious also. Of course, with a big ship like Britannic, he was extra more cautious. And he was well respected by his crew, so he was a good captain. She left for a maiden voyage on the 23 December 1915. Not people actually knew where they were going, but the destination was Mudros.
Yes.
The maiden voyage went actually quite well. She got, of course, wounded, bloody soldiers. But it went quite well, and she had actually 3 voyages after, so she did well.
Yeah, I think lots of people think that the Britannic also sank on her maiden voyage as well, and that's definitely not true. So she did actually carry quite a few men back to the UK and to other various parts of Europe.
True.
So yeah.
A little bit in her middle career during the war, she also went to Naples, and funny enough, Naples is my hometown in Italy. So Captain Bartlett, of course, he wanted to give the crew and the nurses and doctors a little bit of free time to keep their mind off the war and actually to let them rest. And in my opinion, that shows why he's such a good captain, because he takes care of the crew. He knows that the crew can have stress because of the war. They've seen things because of the war. So you can see that he takes care of them. So that's actually quite nice to see.
Yeah, and like there are pictures in Simon Mills' books where you can see the crew, like the nursing staff in front of monuments in Italy and stuff, and it's like it just looks like normal holiday pictures. It's really strange, and it's really sad to think as well they were going from that to something really quite horrible.
True. Of course, a little bit later, when it was like midnight, a little bit beginning of the evening, the weather started acting up, and the captain thought it was a good time to go home, to the ship in this case. So the crew went back to the ship, and that time it was like quite stormy in a port. So the captain thought, you know what, we're gonna stay here to avoid the big waves, of course. And the next morning, he left again, going to Mudros. And of course, we all know what happened there. The explosion.
Yeah.
And of course, many people say, or many people think, that at that time it was a submarine with a torpedo. We can definitely say it was not. It was a sea mine.
Yeah. Not a landmine.
Not a landmine, a sea mine. Many people on the board say that they saw torpedoes and they saw like telescopes of submarines, but these are not true.
Yeah, like there are interviews from the 1970s with survivors, and you will have, I think there's like these 10 or 20 survivors sitting around the table, quite old at this point, and they're all saying, no, it was definitely a torpedo, like I saw the torpedo coming, or I saw 2 torpedoes coming, and I saw the submarine raise itself, and it's really interesting just like how they were all, like they all believed that they saw the submarine, but the evidence now says otherwise. They've even found the, what's it called, the anchor to the floor that the mine was resting on, that the mine was, I don't know in English the way to say it. And yeah, it's really interesting that like the mass hysteria, I think you can call it, or like mass, not hallucination, but like misremembering is, it's really interesting.
When the explosion 2 hit, like we said, she had a double hull, but the double hull was designed to withstand a collision with an iceberg kind of thing, not with an explosion.
No.
So when the explosion hit, actually the whole double hull went to, like, say, crap. It didn't work, or it started flushing in.
So a lot of like smaller ships, if they hit a mine, it wouldn't be uncommon for them to split in half. Even like these explosions were so big. It's only because the Britannic was so large, that she didn't like have more damage in relative to other ships. So the double hull definitely wouldn't have saved her one bit.
True. The bulkhead were damaged, so the watertight doors couldn't close properly. That meant that the crew, of course, they tried to close it manually, but of course you can imagine the scene of water coming in and you trying to frig it with a door that won't work. So at the end they thought, you know what, it's no use, we need to leave this to save our own lives. Also after the explosion, the people on board, these weren't passengers. They knew, of course, it was war. They knew that this could have happened. So everybody went to the stations, to the lifeboat stations and such. Only problem also was that when the explosion hit, the mast was knocked out. And it was actually the mast of the macaroni room. Which meant is that they could send out messages, but no one people could hear them, the messages of course, but the macaroni operator couldn't hear the response. So he was maybe thinking like, hey, I'm talking maybe to a dead person, but he continued, of course, sending out the SOS, and at the end, of course, people came to the rescue. When the explosion hit, Captain Bartlett was actually taking a bath, funny enough. So he actually went with his costume kind of thing. He went to the bridge, he listened to the damage control, and he thought like, hey, we have time. We are near to the Kia Island. We can maybe ram her aground and save the ship. So that was his idea. Also, when he tried to drive the ship to run aground, the portholes were opened. Now we don't know who opened the portholes. They were open, but we don't know who did it actually.
Yeah, so there's a lot of controversy here as well, where lots of the Titanic people that spill over into Britannic will say, oh, the doctors ordered them open, and then the doctor said, no, it was the nurses who opened them. And then there's also people that say, oh, but the portholes didn't have that much to do with the sinking, like it only would have sped it up by a few seconds, not by too much. And there are others that completely disrefute that. So, yeah, we're just going to say what we have read, not necessarily what actually happened, because no one knows. Just don't come at us type thing.
Have mercy.
Yeah.
During the sinking, people, like I said, were at the master stations and things. Of course, we remember also the people of the boiler room who left their post. The captain at the time didn't give the order to abandon ship. But the crew of the boiler rooms, they got into a lifeboat and they started to lower the lifeboat on their own. What they didn't think of course, was that the propellers were still moving into the water. So the ship was still moving, and whilst they were being lowered and released into the water, they would have been sucked into the propeller and been smashed to a million bits. And
so a very interesting point here, which just adds to the amazingness of her story, that Violet Jessop was on this lifeboat, and she was on the Olympic when the Olympic was round by the Hawk, and she was on the Titanic when the Titanic sank, and she was also she was as a nurse on the Britannic, and she was on this lifeboat and somehow managed to survive. And I think Jamie even has a kind of a gross anecdote about that, but.
Well, she did manage to survive. Only the traumatic part is she didn't luckily get, of course, hit by the propeller. She got hit by something though. So what her memoirs say is maybe a piece of wreckage that hit her in the head. When she came above water, she also thought like, hey, I have wreckage in my hand, to later discover that it was the limb of a person who had been decapitated from the body.
Lovely.
So that adds to the trauma of her stories. At the end, the ship foundered. In the movie, I think, we see that the ship capsized. That's not true.
Mhm.
She actually went kind of down like Titanic, not completely
Yeah.
vertically, but a little bit capsized.
If the ground wasn't, like, if the seabed wasn't there, she probably would have gone down quite similarly. But yeah, she hit bottom.
Yeah. When she hit the bottom, people say it was quite peaceful, of course. The survivors were saved by the battleships in the area who got the distress call. Captain Bartlett was also one of the survivors. When he got...
Oh, I was going to say, like, so something that we spoke about before, which I think we've just forgotten about, was that the Britannic was also empty when she sank. Like, she wasn't full of troops, because if she was, it would have been probably one of the worst disasters of World War I on the sea, because it would have been awful. Like, there's no way you can get these sick people, all of them with broken legs and whatever, to get them into lifeboats. It would have taken too long, and there just wasn't that time, because she sunk a lot quicker than the Titanic did. And also Captain he waited to abandon ship until quite late on, because he was so concerned that if they did an evacuation too quickly, that it would cause a panic and that people could die, and well, they did. So that's why he had so much caution, because evacuating a ship, no matter what, is always dangerous. So captains were really reluctant to do so.
When the captain eventually also got on board the warship, which saved him, he of course had to hear the sad news that some of his crewmen died. In this case, many of the stokers and people in the boiler rooms. He was actually quite hit by this, because of course he wanted to keep the crew together. And to hear that he couldn't have done it, he blamed himself very much for those deaths. Which is quite sad, because he was a good captain and he did his best, but at the end we're not perfect. So
yeah, and especially like I think also he got fished out of the water, didn't he? He didn't. Yeah, so he tried to go down with the Britannic, but he couldn't. Like he floated and she didn't. So yeah, like he really was committed to making sure that the ship was, well, everyone on the ship was safe. And I think he probably thought for a while that everyone was fine. It was only when he got rescued that he realized that, was it 20 or 30 people got killed? And yeah, I think that must have been awful.
So at the end, the survivors, they got on Kia Island. They were safe. They were well taken care of by the troops on the island. Some stayed, and some went back to the UK to get back to their duties. So yeah, actually that sums a little bit up the story of the Britannic.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think with Simon Mills, he's written quite a few books. I mean, Jamie has a different book to me here. He's got The Unseen Britannic by Simon Mills. I have the Story of the Wreck of the Britannic or something like that, the blue one, also by Simon Mills, and he owns the wreck, and he is really passionate about the Britannic, and he has done so much to make Britannic more well known recently, and that's part of the reason why more people are understanding what the Britannic is. Like this time 20 years ago, loads of people didn't even realise Titanic had a sister ship, let alone two of them, let alone one that sunk as well. So, yeah, it's really, he's really done a lot, and I really recommend anything that he's done.
And also there are many documentaries also coming on TV and being made. So Britannic is getting her spotlight actually in history.
Yeah, and her wreck is still there. You can still see her davits as well. They're still hanging on the edge, at least the one at the stern is. So, yeah, it's cool.
Yes.
Yeah, and and I think if you have said all you.
Well, actually, one thing I also forget to say is a little extra hint is.
Oh yeah.
Many of you on the stern of the Britannic. There's a little deck house, and it's like on the tip of the stern, where in the movie Titanic, Rose jumped.
Well, no, she didn't. Well, yeah.
Where she fell.
She
almost.
was going to jump. Yeah.
That deck house is actually a morgue.
Yep.
Very lovely. So luckily the word any remains of people inside also
No.
what she sang. So
Yeah.
double victory.
Yeah. Lovely.
Lovely.
Okay. So yeah, this was quite fun, and so yeah, this is the second time we've had to film this because last time was I messed up with the audio for some reason, and yeah. So thank you very much, Jamie, and I hopefully Jamie will come back again. He has an awful lot to add when it comes to ships, and other people as well. We have a friend, a British friend, who is quite eager to talk about something as well. So yeah, if you liked this, let me know. If you have anything to say, which I'm sure there are people that have stuff to say, also say that. And yeah, I will leave Jamie's Instagram information in the description of this podcast or video. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Bye.